Hey, this episode, Tyler Geiger and I have a really good conversation. And I met him over a year ago, and we were able to meet in person at Mid-State Mile. We talk a little bit about that. I got to meet his wife, Morgan, and just a really cool couple that's focused on doing the right thing and just making the world a better place. But genuinely, when you ask people how they're doing, you wonder how many people are just having that automatic response when they don't really care what your answer is.
Like 90% of them probably.
And there's some people that you have to be very careful when you ask them, "How's your day going?" And if you're not prepared to listen, it could go completely sideways.
Yeah, you might get bit too. I've been there. I've
Yeah,
had
more
those
times than not.
yeah, I've had those days too where I'm like, "Hey, don't talk to me."
When I used to travel a lot and I'd go eat at a restaurant by myself, I'd usually just sit at the bar because that's where the TV was at. And I learned pretty quickly, and I don't know if this is good or bad, is I just wouldn't talk to anybody on either side. Because usually if they're sitting at the bar, they're lonely and they've got a story to tell. But you miss out sometimes on really good stories and really cool people because I was like, I don't know if I want to open this can of worms.
I mean, you gotta be careful. You never know, like, people are always going through something that I mean, good and or bad. So you can catch somebody on a really great day or somebody on a terrible day, and I've been victims of that, and I've been the perpetrator of that probably too, so
Yeah. Thank you for agreeing to hop on here today. And you've been having some killer guests on your show.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I've been trying to. I don't know, just I've been pitching a lot of people. I pitch people millions of followers knowing that they probably won't even read the message, but I always figured you can't score if you don't shoot, and I don't put many people on pedestals. I think that we're all the same, and if somebody wants to do me a solid, it's greatly appreciated sometimes, but thank you, man. You as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Before we get started, so everybody, this is Tyler Geiger, and I'll give you some background in a little bit about how we met. And I've been on his podcast, and then we actually did an IG live together after Mid-State Mile last year. And but like I said, before we get started, we're gonna play Would You Rather.
Right on.
All right. So would you rather freeze time or go back in time?
I'd go back in time for sure. Yeah.
Why?
I think if I got to be able to pick the times that I got to go back to, yeah, let's do it. I might freeze time in a not so great moment. And there's a couple things throughout my life that I would definitely love to go back in time and check out one last rip.
What's one of them?
I really enjoyed my wedding day. That was one of the best days of my life, and it was one of those things where it just goes by so quick, and you talk to so many different people that it's very difficult to sit back in that moment and realize what's going on and how great everything is until the next day. I'd probably say that one's number 1.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, it's a blur. You get started and you don't even wait, did I even see her when she was walking down the aisle? And then you're like, I didn't even know those people were there, and there's pictures of you next to them. It's
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah, I didn't cry, so that's one thing I for sure remember. That was, like, my biggest thing. I was like, "I can't cry, I can't cry."
Okay. Would you rather live without music or TV?
I would probably rather live without this is I'm actually surprised at myself. I'd probably rather live without music. And the only reason I say that is just because I'm such a huge sports fan that if I wasn't able to turn on a random game, that'd probably be a kind of an issue. Like, I'm a big Baltimore Ravens fan. So if I was stuck without watching them, that'd be a problem for me, I think. So I guess I would have to ditch the music, man.
I love it. See, I've asked that question, and most people always say music. I would have to say that I couldn't live without TV.
I know. Yeah,
There's
that's
too
a great
much.
question.
I grew up on movies, I grew up on and now there's killer TV series that are out. That's where I get my enjoyment. I like music, but I don't need it.
Me too. The good thing is that I feel like I've seen so many darn TV shows that I've rode that wave, and I don't think I've missed out on too many good ones, but I still need my TV. I need my sports.
Yeah. All right. Good deal. Okay. So this one is an interesting one because I'm curious of your answer on this one. Is would you rather vacation at the beach or the mountains?
I live in the mountains, and I'm always on vacation, so definitely the mountains.
Okay. I thought that's the way you would answer it, but you ask these questions without the assumption. You could have surprised me. I'm like, I love the beach.
I do love the beach, but I love my mountains more.
Okay. And then the last one is would you rather have pizza or tacos?
Pizza 100%.
What kind? Favorite toppings?
I'm a big I hope I don't get judged on this. I'm a big barbecue chicken fan for a pizza. Then we have a taco pizza around where I live, so I can get best of both worlds, just taco on a pizza.
Yeah, there you go. You get it all together. I'm a pizza guy too, but I do love a good taco.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So everybody, this is Tyler Geiger, and like I had shared before, is we came across each other because I was following Colin Cottrell, and he had reposted something about this guy doing this, raising money for veterans and running this race. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I know that race. It's the Mid-State Mile. So I immediately started following Tyler and looking at what his story was and what he was looking to do. And then from that, just created I think, a good friendship that came out of that race before we even met. And then we got to meet and then hold the tent down as the rain poured. And then the day began for you. Not as much for me, but it began for you. And it was an epic event.
Was an epic event, and that was a hilarious way to meet. I remember sitting in the truck, downpour rain. I was like, we should go over there and meet those guys. But no, real glad you reached out when you did, and glad that we've been able to form a friendship over the past year. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, we're coming rapidly upon the
Mhm.
year anniversary of Mid-State Mile. I'm not gonna be able to make it this year. I've got an insane June, but are you going back?
I'll be back. Yep, I got some unfinished business there. I will be back. I don't know how many more years I'll be back, but this one for sure.
And at least come back for one. No, that's
Mhm.
awesome. So Tyler, you're gonna have to give us a lot of updates, and that's what I love about having these conversations in real time because you've had some recent changes in your pathway and what you're looking to do. And the purpose of the podcast, like I shared with you before, is to explain to people and give real examples of how the pathways to greatness are not linear. They change on a regular basis, and that through our conversation that will motivate somebody just not to quit. And then if they're in a downtime, just know that's a switchback and you're going to be heading north soon. And then if you're in an uptime, be prepared because there's going to be difficulties along the way. Before we get into your story, I'd love for you to explain and give us a definition of what greatness is to you.
Yeah, you queued me up with that the other day, saying that you would ask me that, and I put some thought into it, and I think everybody's answer can vary. Everybody has their own definition of greatness. And to be honest, I'm not even exactly sure what mine looks like. I just think that I have an idea of how to get there. And I think how to get there looks like just winning each and every day that you plan out. And that might look totally different than somebody else's day. If you can put wins on top of wins on top of wins consistently throughout your life, whatever it is that you're doing, maybe you want to be better at your job or be a better husband, father, improve athletically. I think if you can start stacking wins, then you can at least get on the correct path to find whatever your definition of greatness is. So, although I'm not sure exactly what it looks like because I don't know if I'll ever get there or ever be there, but I think I have an idea of the road travel to at least have that conversation with myself or have other people being like, wow, he's great. That's what I
It's a
have.
it's a great definition, and what I want people to hopefully listen to and hear what you said is that you don't know if you'll ever get there. To me, that's the true definition of greatness because it's something that we have to strive for every day, and like you said, stack wins on top of wins on top of wins to continue that passion. Otherwise, it just would be a goal. It'd be like, okay, I want to finish 24 hours. And then you're like, okay, now what in a
Mm.
race? And you would just constantly be searching for something where this is you're striving for something.
Yeah, and I think it's an issue if you can define greatness for yourself, in all honesty, because the great ones don't call themselves great. They might have an idea of what that looks like, but if I'm great, then you're going to be talking about it, and then they're going to be talking about it, and they're going to be coming together being like, wow, he's done this, that, and this. That's their definition of greatness that I live up to. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever get there because I don't think I'm ever going to sit back and, wow, you done it. You did it. You're great. No, I'll let other people make that decision and I'll just keep doing what I know that I'm supposed to do and stacking those wins.
There you go. No, that's fantastic. So I know that some of our group, our networks crossover, but there's probably a large portion of the people that I know that don't know you. And so, what I'd love for you to do is briefly give a little bit of your backstory, and then we'll go into some of the recent changes that you've had on your pathway.
Sure. Yeah, so I grew up in Michigan, spent some time in Nashville, Tennessee, and now I live in Eastern Montana. Career-wise, I was law enforcement for 5 years. That recently ended, which I'm sure you would like to talk about. So that's been my career thus far. Personally, I just enjoy being outside. That's one of the main reasons I moved to Montana, just because it's so beautiful. But I'm a big hunter. I've recently started my own podcast like a year and a half ago, so that's a fun hobby. I love working out. I run a lot. I don't particularly enjoy that, but that's something else that I do. I like helping people try to reach their goals, and I'm also married. My wife and I have been together, like, we'll call it a year and a half. Total, it's a lot longer than that, but yeah, we have 2 miniature Dachshunds, and yeah, no, there's a lot going on every day over here, so that's just kinda me in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, and it's the more you dig in, and I'd encourage everybody to go listen to the is it Knocked On?
Nope, knock performance.
Knock Performance, sorry.
Yep,
But it's a really good podcast, and I know he's recently had a shift in the format where it was more heavily hunting focused, and now it's more mission and getting to know people focused, correct?
yep.
Yep. So it's good because what I encourage people to do is find a and there's so many podcasts that are out there, but what it does is it gives you exposure into people's thought process and who they really are. Cause the more you listen to it, you can get to know the people and find out, okay, does this guy resonate? And then there's sometimes that they'll resonate with you for a while and then you'll go in a different direction and you'll need to find somebody else. He's got a really solid group of guests, but then also the insights that he shares is extremely valuable.
I appreciate the kind words, thank you.
Hey, no problem. You could snip that out and use that as a
I will. I'll take every compliment I can get.
exactly. Okay, so what I would love for you to do or enjoy, Tim Douglas had a podcast about not saying the word love. I would enjoy the opportunity to hear you explain some of the recent changes that you've had that I would think are pretty big for you in life.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess the biggest ones is that I quit my job just to be as open and blunt as possible about it. I'm no longer employed by the police department that I was working for. I guess long story short, I did that for 3 years in Nashville, and then we moved to Montana, and I did that coming up on 2 years. So the police academy and all that other jazz has been just over 5 years. And for me, I wanted to leave a year ago, in all honesty, and I don't think I've told that to many people. It was just one of those things where my heart wasn't in it. And this is a job that if your heart isn't in it anymore and you're not having fun and you're not consistently learning, you really need to check that because it's a dangerous game that we play every day. And if you're not all in 100%, it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous for you. It can be dangerous for the people that you work with, your partners. I had some discussions with my wife and my dad. He's like my best friend. I run everything by him. And there was a few things that had happened at work where it just validated everything that I had been feeling over the past few months. And I decided to just call it and pursue new things with my own company and other opportunities in my life that have presented themselves. So it's definitely been interesting over the past month plus of working through this. You don't have a quote unquote career anymore. You are somewhat starting over, but I know in my heart that I 100% made the right decision and don't regret leaving my job or anything like that. So it's been really fun and interesting process.
What kind of anxiety popped up when you started thinking about it?
That's the thing. It wasn't really anxiety at all. I was really looking forward to doing it. The only anxiety that I had is that making sure 100% that my wife and I were on the same page,
Mhm.
that I had her 100% support because you know how it is. You've been married way longer than I have. If your wife something's wrong with her, you could be having the best day ever, but there's always that kind of pit in your stomach or that thought in the back of your mind where not everything's not perfect right now. And
Mhm.
of course, things aren't hardly ever perfect, but you at least want her to be in a good mood or you at least want to be on the same page with your wife because if you guys can work as a team, then the possibilities are endless. So that was really where the quote anxiety came from was just
Mhm.
to make sure that she had me 100%.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there, and I appreciate you sharing that. And one of the things that you had stated, and again, the line of law enforcement definitely has more dangers than most people's regular job. But the thing that's really important that you shared is that if you're not all in and passionate about it, you really need to look at it. And we find ourselves, I know I did for years, losing a lot of that passion, but doing it for the paycheck. And there's time you need to have a paycheck. We need to make an income to survive, but you have to start to think about at what cost are you earning that paycheck? What are you missing out on? What is it challenging you in your core? And I do feel that so many people ignore it and then just are in the grind and think that there is no other way out.
No, I couldn't agree more with what you just said, and the most important thing is that there's always a way out. Always. Always. You just have to find it. If you don't see it right away, that's because you haven't digged hard enough to look for it. You haven't had those tough conversations with your family trying to figure out what that exit plan looks like. Those conversations suck. They're terrible. I don't enjoy that. "Hey, babe, can you come over here? I wanna run something by you." And you got your fingers crossed behind your back being like, "I hope this works." Nobody wants to have those conversations. But if you need to get out of your situation, you're gonna have to do some difficult shit. And that just is what it is. But there's always a way out. I promise anybody who's listening to that.
And then you also talked about preparation and conversation. It's not keeping everything in. So many men think, and women do it as well. I think more men do than women. Is that you know what? I've got to make this decision. I can't ask for help. I can't ask for guidance. I'm scared. I'm confused. What am I feeling? Am I running from something or am I running to something? So there's so many different elements that you talked about. And similar to you is when I made my decision, I 100% had to have my wife's agreement, because if not, then it would have been a selfish decision, but then, it would have created more controversy and challenge to our marriage than
Mhm,
if she was in agreement. Because I could grind. I could just go at it and go get a job and go do that, but it would have been a slow demise to my emotional state, but I would have done it because I call myself a provider.
mhm.
And we have to hear what Tyler said and have the conversation with those trusted people around us that will give us the hard truth and not judge us, but love us. And it sounds like that's what your wife and your dad did for you.
Yeah, without a doubt. They had done that, and they're still doing that even right now after it's been 6 weeks or however long it's been. And, Jeff, you'd be surprised how many freaking messages I got based off that post. I was really debating if I should put those words out into the universe just 'cause there's a fine line with me for how much I wanna share with the world and how much I wanna keep to myself and my family. But when I wrote all of that down on my page and posted it a few weeks ago, that was a first take, sit down. There was no backspaces on this laptop. The only backspaces were for spelling errors, and Lord knows there was a few. But whatever came to my mind went through my fingers onto this laptop keyboard, and that's what stayed there because that's genuinely how I felt in that moment. And I have a lot of PD guys that follow my stuff because they're into hunting and things of that nature. So probably over a dozen PD guys have hit me back and been like, "Wow, I've been going through this too. Thank you for this message. I'm trying to reevaluate my situation." So it seems to have given them a little bit of hope, and that's just a way that I can help somebody without wearing a uniform now.
And that's another piece of gold that everybody, again, if you need to rewind it, or like I always say, just re-listen to the episode like 7 times. It has more downloads that way. But what you shared was giving other people hope, and it's being authentic, and you don't have to give all the gritty details. There are things that you do need to keep to yourself that nobody has the right to know, but the decision that you were able to share gave people hope of, if Tyler can do it, I can do it. Because like you said earlier, is we're all just people and we all have different strengths and different weaknesses and different experiences. But if the more we share those, and that's what's great about your podcast and this podcast, is we're sharing those, giving people hope to say, we don't have it all together. Because if you just look at that 30-second reel that you have, it looks great. It sounds great. Tyler's got it all put together.
I'm so lost some days that it's not even funny. Like people see on this app and on these social media platforms that exactly what you want them to see.
Mhm.
And it's important for people to actually show when they quote unquote fail, or when they mess up, or they make a mistake, or they want to share something personal that might help somebody else. I think those are the things that really need to be spoken about, which is why you and I have curated these platforms that we've created and talk to these amazing people each week, is to hopefully share these moments and get through to a listener where they're like, huh, Jeff and Tyler were talking about that. Why the heck can't I do that? Or why not reach out to them and ask further questions? So that's just, again, a way of helping people now, opposed to showing up to roll call every morning at 6 a.m.
And getting it out is healthy for us.
Oh,
I'm
it feels
sure
amazing.
that post, you hit send and a huge relief. Would I be wrong in saying that?
Not at all. And the funny thing is that I totally forgot I even put that into the universe. I had a friend that I hadn't spoken to in quite some time. We reconnected and he goes, yeah, back when you were on the PD. And I said, how'd you know I wasn't on the PD? I know we live in a small town, but he's, dude, you put it on the internet. I was like, oh shit, I guess I did, didn't I?
Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting that brings me a thought to my mind is how many people are watching, but you don't know are watching. They may not ever hit like, they may never hit comments. And I fell victim to this not that long ago where I'm sitting there going, I'm not getting like all of a sudden IG's algorithms throttling everything back. I'm not getting the exposure that I thought I went. So that I went inside, I went self and went that comparison game. But then randomly you'll get a message from somebody, hey, I don't ever post, I don't ever like anything, but I'm reading everything that you put up and you're making a difference. And that's we have to realize and disconnect from that social recognition that people are watching and they are being impacted by everything we say, good or bad.
They are, and it's funny you say that because I was just speaking about this with, my friend the other day, is that, in all honesty, over the past, let's call it 2 or 3 months, I get at least 1 message a day from somebody that I don't know them from Adam, but they follow me online, and they have been listening to the show or recently have listened to an episode from a guest that I had on, and they just compliment me based on the conversation or the guest, or hey, I really like how you said that. Thank you. I've been working on myself as well. And I don't know these men from Adam. And that right there tells me that, hey, you're doing the right thing. You're on the right path. You're spreading the right message. It might not be what people want to hear sometimes because if you know me at all, I'm not going to beat around the bush with you. So some people are receptive to that, some people aren't. But the ones who are, when they reach out and just give me that little bit of, let's call it validation, to just encourage me that I'm doing the right thing, I know there's people listening. And I know there's always people listening. And if I can help one single person, people say that all the time, right? But it's true. I genuinely feel that way. One person, and maybe that person can help somebody else. It's a chain effect. It's a domino. It doesn't have to be just me. I can start it. Now it's up to you to take that and implement that into your life and help people in your circle too.
No, that's really good. And it's important because while you were talking, the other thing that I thought of when you said that I want to help one person, we do say that. I say that a lot.
Mhm,
And then I find myself getting sucked into how many downloads do I have on the
mhm.
show and how many, and it's as long as there's one, and even if there's none, and I'm having a conversation with you, you and I are impacting one another. We're sharing with one another, and that needs to be enough.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, that one person might be you and your guest. Like, you
Yeah.
guys just had a very awesome, intimate bro conversation, whatever it might be, and it really hit home with you guys. It might not hit home with other people, but heck, it's your show. There's a benefit for this whole thing to you too. And that's important because if you don't take care of yourself first, then you can't serve anybody else. At least that's how I feel. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. And when we think about it, you talked about having a good conversation with a bro. How many times we sit around and we don't have these kind of conversations? Like if we sat down, we would talk about probably lighthearted stuff and eventually we would get to something deeper. But I don't, while you were talking, I was sitting there thinking is I don't interview my friends as I
Mhm,
should
mhm,
to get into those better conversations. It's all
mhm.
surface level stuff for us. It's kids and kids sports and how's the weather? And once you ask one of those deep questions, so tell me, what is your definition of greatness? People freak out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. Jeff, I had recently met a guy. through Colin, and kind of small talk with him. He ended up doing something very nice for me. So I wanted to return the favor and I did something nice for him. And we exchanged phone numbers and I had a missed call from him on Saturday night. I was out with my wife. So I called him back on Sunday morning and asked him, "Hey, man, did you call me?" He goes, "Yes, I did. I was going through some personal things and I just really wanted to talk it out. And I figured that you'd be a great person to do that with." I talked to this guy one time ever on the phone for 10 minutes, ever. And he felt comfortable enough to reach out to me and talk about some personal things some vulnerable things as a man that he's going through. And he just wanted my advice and basically just somebody to vent to and to talk to. And that made me feel really great that he sees that in me so early on in our relationship. And I know he listens to some things that I put out. And obviously, Colin puts a good word in for me and things like that. So for him to feel comfortable enough to reach out to essentially almost a stranger to express himself, that's why I do what I do. And it just puts a smile on my face. I'm honored.
Yeah, and you wonder it's how you carry yourself. You definitely carry yourself as a genuine person who cares. Like you said, you're not gonna mince words, but it's not coming from a place of condemnation. It's more of, "Hey, I wanna help you, and if I'm not telling you the truth, I'm not helping you." And what I want people to think about themselves and do some self-reflection is, are you coming across to everyone in a genuine way where they would feel like they could pick up the phone and share something with you and just you listen? And again, if you don't like the answer, then think, okay, what's one little thing that I can change today to help people feel more comfortable around me? Like, how am I making people feel comfortable? The In the Bible, it talks about be a good neighbor, love
Yes.
your neighbor. And the critical thing about that is so many times in our society, we are waiting for the other person to be the good neighbor. That's not what we're asked to do. We're asked to be the good neighbor, be the one that ask your next door neighbor, how is their day? How are they feeling? Again, we talked about at the beginning, you got to be careful because if you're not ready and prepared, then be genuine and don't ask that question if you're not ready. And if it comes back, then you need to listen. You need to be that person that just openly listens and then help if you can, if they need it, or just be the ear to listen to.
It's This brings me back a little bit. We have both interviewed Jeremiah Wilbur, and Jeremiah, when I was speaking to him, he talked a lot about that. Just be a good person. Whatever that looks like for you, because everybody has their own definition of everything, of course. But just be a good person. Next time you're in the elevator and it's you and somebody else, say hi. I walked out of the grocery store yesterday. I passed this old man. He had a cart full of stuff. I said, "Hey, are you all right? You need a hand?" "Oh, I'm good." "Okay." But it made me feel good. I was with my buddy actually. I was like, I'm gonna be the same way when I'm old like that. "Get the hell out of my way, I got it." But I'm trying to do the right thing, and I'm trying to set an example for my buddy who was with me, who's 6, 7 years younger than I am, and I know that I serve as a mentor to him,
Mm.
so I want him to see because 'cause he's been living a few days of my life, basically. He needs a little bit more structure in his life. He wanted to come, visit, see my wife, and just see what a normal day in the life of me looks like. And I took him. Every single thing that I would normally do without him there, I took him on a journey with me yesterday, and we're going to do the same today. And I just want him to see how I carry myself. And I'm not perfect. Let's get that like on the record. I make mistakes daily, but there are little things like being a good neighbor or helping that old man who's struggling with his cart because he bought too many loaves of bread. So it's a
Yeah.
different definition for everybody, but it's just be good.
Yeah. Bring somebody like, and what I enjoy about that, what you just shared is bring somebody along for the journey, bring somebody on your pathway and show them the struggles that you've had because that reinforces like, okay, Tyler's not perfect. He was able to get through it. It's all part of the process. And it's what they all say is we got to love the process, not the outcome, because the process is the gold and that's where learning and growing happens.
Yes. I've heard that quote before, but it recently really stuck out to me. Do you listen to Cam Haynes' podcast by chance?
Not consistently.
He had a guest on. His name's Kip Fulks. He was one of the founders of Under Armour, and now he works at Origin. And Kip said something pretty much just like that a few weeks ago. Fall in love with the process. Give a F about the outcome. And I was like, hell yeah. Cause I'm in a deep process, deep training block right now. And I'm genuinely trying my absolute hardest to love every step that I take in each workout. And then whatever happens towards the end of June happens. But I know that I did what I was supposed to do, and the outcome will be the outcome. But I really want to make sure I'm enjoying that journey to get to that potential outcome.
And that's something that's critical that you said there is you're able to look back. You're not living in the past, but you have to evaluate the preparation if the outcome doesn't happen like you had hoped
Mhm.
and to see. And if you go, you know what? I did absolutely everything I could to get prepared. I'm happy with the performance. And because you've been struggling with the knee issues. So
Yes.
there's no telling what's going to happen when you actually get out there on the course because that course is brutal and I'm sure you have a goal of beating your time last year.
Mhm.
It's up in the air with your knee. You
Mhm.
don't know what's gonna happen.
Bad news for everybody at Mid-State Mile. My knee feels probably better than it's ever felt in its entirety of 29 years. So we are feeling absolutely amazing thanks to Justin Hamilton. But
That's awesome.
yeah, man, I don't live in the past. I am probably the furthest person from living in the past, but I always go to the past just for a moment or two, especially when things get hard. That's why I do hard stuff. So when life gets difficult, I can reach back and be like, oh, but you had to deal with this, or you did that, and that really sucked. There's no way what you're going through now is worse than this. And you crushed that. So that's when I like to dig back and look at previous moments in my life. It's when real life gets difficult, then I go back.
Yeah, Goggins talks about the cookie jar,
Hmm.
and I don't always put good things in the cookie jar. Like you said, it's going back to when a race was tough or life was tough, and then you go back and you reach in there and go, "I'm on the other side of that already." So, I know it seemed like it was bad, it seems like it's bad now, but this moment, I'll put in the cookie jar because 'cause I'm gonna need to use that some other day when something else gets tough.
I have buckets and totes full of things. I don't have jars. I have totes that I just keep them stashed away in the basement. And whenever I need them, I'll open up those totes and I'll go back and be like, you've actually done some things in your 29 years. Reevaluate. You can get through what's going on right now because there's going to be more things the next week or the next month or the next year that are going to suck. And when you accomplish those and get through those moments, you can open up that tote, tuck that away, and then keep pushing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Another question is if you could go back in time 5 years or so, you can pick whatever time that you want, but 5 years is a good number. What 3 pieces of advice that you would you give that younger Tyler?
Three pieces of advice if I could go back 5 years. So 5 years
Mm.
ago, I would have probably been, what is today? Holy cow. 5 years ago, I think to yesterday, today's the second. I think 5 years ago, May 1st, that was my first day of the police academy. And to be honest, that's where I really learned how to instill that real discipline and that real consistency and that real leadership. So I would just tell myself to stay on that path. And it's been amazing for me because throughout the majority of my life, I have never really gotten off the path in terms of a physical aspect of things where I'm never like, I have to get in shape. I have to get in shape. If you stay in somewhat decent shape all of the time, you don't ever have to get in shape. If you don't get off the path, you never have to get back on it. So I would say to younger Tyler, stay consistent, keep staying disciplined and lead by example. And that's something that I struggled with early on in my years would be I could tell you something or I could give my opinion on something, but if I wasn't actively showing that, because actions speak louder than words, that's an issue. So I think it's okay to be the quiet one in the room and just lead by your work. Let your work speak.
Mhm.
And I think I do a lot better job at that right now than I did 5 years ago, is just letting the work do the talking. And if people ask for nuggets, give them your honest opinion, but really show them because I can show you a lot better than I can tell you. And it's funny coming from a podcast host, but that's true. And that's why I have my friend here because I can preach all these things consistently. But I want you to actually see how I live. Like I don't just talk. I actually am doing this work. And that speaks volumes opposed to posting an episode or having a conversation. Let me show you, and then you can take from that what you will.
Yeah, there's so much value in what you shared is that you have to people shouldn't have to question the real Tyler versus the podcast Tyler.
Mhm,
And when you hear of big social media influencer, podcast hosts, different people where they're like, they're one way on the podcast, but if you really get to know them, they're not the same person.
mhm,
And to me, that's a fail. That's an epic fail that's dangerous to people. That,
mhm.
yes, your words may be helpful to others, but if you're not living them, they're just shallow. They're hollow words that the people that matter most won't believe in. So it's tainted.
And I live by that. That's one of my founding principles on my platform is that I am 100% unapologetically myself. And what you're hearing with our conversation right now is 100% me. This is exactly who I am. This is exactly how I will talk to my friend who's upstairs rustling around right now. The only difference is that I'm not cursing as much as I normally would because I'm trying to be respectful on your show. So I have that I'm
Discipline. You're
that
staying disciplined.
that's something that I'm working on. My wife and I have been talking about that I need to cut down my cursing. But I'm passionate, and when I get passionate about things, that then comes curse words, but yeah.
You'll have to come up with some different colorful words that aren't
I I know. I take a journal now, so I'll have to start jotting down some better words from, Webster or something.
exactly. Expand your vocabulary.
Mhm.
All right. So if you fast forward 5 years, especially now that you're on this new path, what are three questions that you would ask yourself in 5 years?
Did you do what you were supposed to do? Period. That's my biggest question. Did you do what you were supposed to do? Another question I have is, were you leading your wife? My wife is under a lot of stress consistently throughout her week and with her job. So I have to be the kind of that anchor. So did you anchor your wife is something that I would definitely ask myself in 5 years. And then I guess the third thing would be is that's a great question. What's one more thing that I would say? I'm really big on relationships. So are you putting time or have you been putting the appropriate time into your relationships? And one thing that I do throughout my daily life is if you're in my circle and we're close, I will cold call you. That's something that I've been doing, especially over the past 6 months, because I'm pretty remote, right? I don't have a lot of friends in this state, older friends. They're all
Mhm.
newer people in my life. There's been some great people that I've had throughout my life that I don't get to see very often. So I will just cold call you. So have you been leading from the front in terms of your friendships too?
It's a good reminder. I know we talked about having a conversation one on one impacts the one side or the other. And I'm sure as you've interviewed people, things have resonated. That's definitely that resonates with me 100%
Mm,
because I find myself consuming when I'm not like if I get in the car, it's okay because I'm not in the car as much as I used to be. I want to listen to podcasts. I want to catch up on hearing your conversations, or I've been listening to a lot of the Nick Bear podcasts lately
mhm.
and different ones that I get a lot out of. But I found myself the last couple of weeks questioning myself but I'm not connecting with anybody. I'm not calling people and have other friends that are great at it. And I have been failing miserably at that. So that's a bit of accountability for me, Tyler, that I appreciate because I've got to do that because I can listen to all these great podcasts. I can learn all this other stuff. But if my relationships aren't growing, then all this information isn't as relevant as it needs to be.
Yeah, and the thing about with all of this information is that it's all great and there's so much of it, but what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? Are you just being like, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah, well, I really agree with what he said there. Moving on." No, if you liked it, implement it. And you touched on driving. That is when I do all of my cold calling.
Mhm.
Instead of that podcast or instead of my favorite song, because I'm getting excited on the way to the gym or something, I'll make a quick call. 5 minutes. And half the time, I enjoy it when you don't answer and I just leave you a funny voicemail. And then we get to texting or something like that the next day when you return back. So that's I'm really big on time and time management. And that driving time is bonus time. That's working time. That's check-in time for me.
What if you roll back as we start to wind this conversation down, and we're going to have multiples of these because less than an hour is not long enough to have
Mhm.
all these different conversations that are good. If you have to think back of some of your interviews, I'm not going to ask you for your best one, but what are some of the key things that you've learned that you've been able to implement and see a positive difference
With my show or
with
just
your
within my
show? Yeah, I'm
life?
sorry. I didn't complete my thought.
You're okay. What I've really so here I'll start here. When I listen to podcasts, and I was just telling my friend this yesterday, and this is no lie. When I listen to podcasts, I am really probably 9 times out of 10 not on there to listen to your guest. And that's no disrespect to anybody's show. I'm on there to listen to the host. I want to see how they run their business. I want to see how they initiate conversation or transition into different things. And one thing that I've really taken away and have implemented into my show is just shut up. This is strange for me because I'm the one being interviewed, so I'm doing the majority of the talking, and you're being an excellent host by just letting me get my thoughts out through this microphone into your headphones. Just shut up. The platform is theirs. I want to learn about you. I want to take nuggets away from you. People hear me talk enough on my show. They're not here to listen to me. They want to listen to Jeff when I have Jeff on Knock Performance and listen to his wisdom. So I really want to give the platform to people to really just let them vent. And if it's a time for me to chime in, I will chime in. And if I can have a question lined up next, then I'll have a question lined up next. But if I need to touch on something that you said because I liked it, then we'll go there. There's no strict rules and just listen with intent.
And that is something I want everybody to hear. Take a deep breath. And that is your everyday conversation with the people that are standing in front of you. Just shut up. Don't try to one up them. Don't try to add something. Just listen. And people enjoy talking about themselves and sharing their experiences, and don't steal that from them. Like Tyler said, is be able to respond, but listen to listen, not to respond. Don't have your answer already prepared based on the question that you asked, or, okay, I'm going to tee up this because then it'll tee me up on what I did this weekend. Like,
Yes.
who cares? Just listen to them. And
Th-
if they genuinely want to have a conversation, then they'll go, what'd you do this weekend? And then the conversation's off to the races.
Yes, there's a big difference between listening with the intent to respond and listening with the intent to learn.
Mhm.
There's a very big difference, and I catch myself my wife will call me out on that. She's, "Are you listening to respond to me? Or are you listening because you actually genuinely care what the hell I'm saying?" You know what I mean? So, I try to do that with her, with my friends, with people that I have on my show and onward.
Man, that's awesome. So how can the audience support and, I guess, share your message?
Yeah, best way to find me is just on Instagram. I run a podcast. I've been doing that for a year and a half. We drop episodes every Monday. 9 times out of 10, it's me and another individual. And that podcast is called Knock Performance, NOCK Performance. You can find it on any platform, wherever you listen to your podcast. And then if you want, I would say more of a personal outlook, but I really post basically the majority of my stuff through my business page. And I also do some health coaching and fitness coaching and things of that such, which is ran through Knock Performance as well. So basically anything Knock Performance, you can reach me and I try to make it a point to respond to every message, respond to every DM, send videos, check in. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Tyler, I appreciate you. I'm grateful for your friendship. I know I'll have to cold call you at some point here soon. Not that I've been held accountable to that. And I've enjoyed all of this. I've got a huge page of notes. And so I just encourage everybody to go follow Tyler, listen to his podcast, support him because he doesn't do it for your support, but he needs your support. And it's something that I know that the people that he has on will bring you value as much as Tyler will.
Thank you for the kind words, Jeff. I really am. I remember when we were talking that you're like, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a show." And you were asking me how I did a couple things. And I hope that I was able to help jumpstart your platform over here. You've been very consistent. That's one of my biggest things. You put a great message out. You talk to a lot of great people. I won't lie to you and say I've listened to everyone, but I've listened to a majority of them. So keep doing what you're doing. You're also spreading a very great message. And it's been an honor to come on here and chat with you, buddy.
All right, man. I appreciate you. And everybody, check out the show notes to follow Tyler.